Well, the president is once again talking about impeachment in an interview with Bloomberg released tonight. The president says, I don't think they can impeach somebody that's doing a great job, proving once again that the president has never read one word of the Constitution, especially the part that is most relevant to his future, the impeachment clause. The president told Bloomberg, so you get elected as a Republican or a Democrat and the opposite party gets put into the House, that would mean, oh, let's impeach him. Can't do it, Trump said. If you look at the definition of impeachment, that's a high bar, and that would take a long time to fight that if you're doing a good job. And I'm doing a great job. To judge by legislative accomplishments, the performance of the economy, and significant reductions in the deficit, which Donald Trump has never achieved, Bill Clinton was actually doing a much better job than Donald Trump when he was impeached. After last night's breaking news at this hour that the Trump White House is full of talk of impeachment these days, we got a look today at one of the president's most important lines of defense to a possible obstruction of justice charge because of his firing of FBI Director James Comey. We learned from the Washington Post exactly 24 hours ago, quote, Trump recently has consulted his personal attorneys about the likelihood of impeachment proceedings. Rudy Giuliani actually told the Washington Post, we've talked a lot about impeachment at different times. And one of the things Rudy Giuliani and the president have actually talked about is this.
One of the things they're concerned about, did the president obstruct justice when he fired Comey? First of all, he has a right to do it under Article 2. Secondly, he made it clear to Lester Holt he did it knowing that the investigation would continue, so he couldn't have obstructed it.
Couldn't have obstructed it. Made it clear to Lester Holt that he knew the investigation would continue. Rudy Giuliani said that a month ago. A month ago. And today, the president tweeted this lie about NBC News. When Lester Holt got caught fudging my tape on Russia, they were hurt badly. The president is lying about that. Lester Holt, as everyone knows, did not fudge the tape of his interview with President Trump. NBC News has had the extended video of the Lester Holt interview online since it was originally broadcast last May. You can go to it right now at NBCnews.com/nightly news/video Pres Trump extended exclusive interview with Lester Holt. You can Google it. It's right there. It's been there every day. Still is. The interview remains the most important interview anyone has ever done with President Trump, and it would obviously become Exhibit A in any obstruction of justice case against the president for firing James Comey, because the president said to Lester Holt that he was going to fire James Comey no matter what recommendation he got from his attorney general and from his deputy attorney general, Rod Rosenstein, about what to do with James Comey. The recommendation the president got, which was written by Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, was that he should fire James Comey because of the public comments James Comey made about the FBI's investigation of Hillary Clinton's emails. When Lester Holt asked the president about firing James Comey, he never mentioned the investigation of Hillary Clinton's emails, but he did mention what he called this Russia thing. The president told Lester Holt, when he decided to fire James Comey, quote, I said to myself, you know, this Russia thing with Trump and Russia is a made-up story. That was what the president of the United States said was in his head when he decided to fire James Comey. Now that he has discussed impeachment with Rudy Giuliani and others in the White House, the president knows that one of his most dangerous criminal and impeachment exposures is a charge of obstruction of justice for firing James Comey and attempting to fire Attorney General Jeff Sessions and Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller in an effort to obstruct the Mueller investigation. And so the president knows that he needs a defense against what he said to Lester Holt in that interview. And so his defense today is Lester Holt did something with the videotape, quote, fudging my tape. That is a lie that can only work with Trump voters and probably will work with most of them, but it will not work with Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller. It will not work in impeachment hearings in the House Judiciary Committee if the Democrats win the House. And it will not work in an impeachment trial in the United States Senate, where the Lester Holt interview about the firing of James Comey will be played in its entirety for the United States Senate if they sit as jurors in a Trump impeachment trial. The president knows that fudging my tape lie won't work in the real world. And so when it comes to his actual legal defense, today's tweet is probably best read as a Trumpian variation on what Rudy Giuliani said a month ago about the Lester Holt interview, the part about the president knew the investigation would continue after he fired Comey, so that couldn't be obstruction of justice. Now, let's listen once again to a portion of the unedited video in which Donald Trump describes to Lester Holt what he was thinking after he got the written recommendation from Rod Rosenstein to fire FBI Director James Comey. It's even more extraordinary to listen to now, because the president begins his explanation with praise of Rod Rosenstein, saying he's highly respected, very good guy, very smart guy. This is the part of the video that you will be hearing repeatedly if there is an impeachment hearing in the House Judiciary Committee and an impeachment trial in the United States Senate.
Oh, I was going to fire regardless of recommendation.
So there was really
he made a recommendation. He's highly respected, very good guy, very smart guy. The Democrats like him. The Republicans like him. He made a recommendation. But regardless of recommendation, I was going to fire Comey, knowing there was no good time to do it. And in fact, when I decided to just do it, I said to myself, I said, you know, this Russia thing with Trump and Russia is a made-up story. It's an excuse by the Democrats for having lost an election that they should have won. And the reason they should have won it is the Electoral College is almost impossible for a Republican to win. It's very hard because you start off at such a disadvantage. So everybody was thinking they should have won the election. This was an excuse for having lost an election.
Are you angry with Mr. Comey because of his Russia investigation?
I just want somebody that's competent. I am a big fan of the FBI. I love the FBI.
But were you a fan of him taking up that investigation?
I think that about the Hillary Clinton investigation?
No, about the Russia investigation and possible links between...
Look, let me tell you. As far as I'm concerned, I want that thing to be absolutely done properly. When I did this now, I said, I probably, maybe will confuse people. Maybe I'll expand that, I'll lengthen the time because it should be over with. It should, in my opinion, should have been over with a long time ago because all it is an excuse. But I said to myself, I might even lengthen out the investigation, but I have to do the right thing for the American people. He's the wrong man for that position.
Joining us now for legal analysis of what you just heard is former federal prosecutor Joyce Vance, who's now an MSNBC legal analyst. Also joining us, David Frum, senior editor at The Atlantic and author of Trumpocracy, and John Harwood, editor-at-large for CNBC. And Joyce Vance, to the legal theory that we seem to be hearing from Rudy Giuliani, and possibly it's what we're going to eventually hear from the president, that moment could not be obstruction of justice, and he couldn't be describing an obstruction of justice to Lester Holt when he said he was thinking about the Russia investigation, because later, as he goes on, he says that he knew the investigation would continue and he just thought James Comey was the wrong man for the job.
It seems like a fabricated defense. I suppose it's what you do when you know the real facts and you know that the president has given an interview where he's given a very persuasive reason that he chose to fire Jim Comey, and you realize months down the road, oops, that was the wrong thing to say. If we say that, we've got criminal liability. So they try to look around at what else was said during that interview and see if they can craft a new version of what was said. And the problem for them is that at the end, when the president says, I know the investigation will go on, he talks about the fact that it had gone on for much too long, that it should have been over. And it's clear that the import of his full statement is he would like to see that investigation come to an end, and he, in fact, takes steps to end it.
John Harwood, the president had a strange Twitter morning, even for him, an outpouring of tweets about the status of the investigation and what's happening with White House personnel. A lot of tweets about Don McGahn being fired, which the president was making clear was his decision. But he wanted to take Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner out of that story. He tweeted, Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner had nothing to do with the so-called pushing out of Don McGahn. The fake news media has it purposely so wrong. They love to portray chaos in the White House when they know that chaos doesn't exist. Just a smooth running machine with changing parts. It is impossible to read that with a straight face, John Harwood, but the president seems very concerned with the perception of how this White House is working, especially with the exit of Don McGahn.
Well, as you know, Lawrence, it's routine for the president to protest stories that turn out to have been true. The president gives every indication at this moment of feeling incredible pressure from the Mueller investigation, from the Southern District of New York investigation, from other legal activity going on in New York, the Manhattan District Attorney and the New York Attorney General. And he is alone in the White House, venting, trying to divert attention, trying to cloud the credibility of people who are coming after him. But the dominant impression you have is somebody who knows that the hounds are approaching his room, and he doesn't quite know what to do about it. And a lot of these tweets didn't really make sense. They didn't reflect a real connection with reality or rationality. There wasn't a logic to a lot of the things he was saying. And I think, the country is watching this play out in real time, and it's not pretty.
David, Frum, the president's trying a new impeachment defense, and that is you cannot impeach a president if he's doing a good job.
What is so striking about that defense is that the president is grappling with a political reality. And I think, just to echo what John said, what the president's recognizing is not only is he facing tougher law enforcement challenges, but it's now almost the 1st of September. The election campaign is coming to an end. I think he's looking at polling that shows bad results for the Republicans. You know, it's striking when you watch that Lester Holt tape. We're used to comparing the Donald Trump of today to that of 20 years ago and marking the apparent cognitive deterioration. But even compared to a year and a half ago, he seems impaired. He was calmer and more fluent even when talking to Lester Holt than he is today. There is some tremendous accumulating pressure on him. And it's not just legal, I think it is political. He is preparing for the argument that he expects after November, when clearly he expects to face at least a Democratic House, maybe a Democratic House and Senate.
Joyce Vance, the president is venturing into legal scholarship tonight. In his interview with Bloomberg, he says, "I view it as an illegal investigation. I'm not saying anything. I'm just telling you this. You read the great scholars, the great legal, there should have never been a special counsel." Your reaction to that?
He's just wrong when he says that. The reason that we use special counsels in our federal criminal justice system, or previously independent counsels, is when we have a criminal investigation that the Justice Department needs to conduct, but the people who would be in charge of the investigation have a conflict of interest and they need to recuse. And so we make provision for this sort of a situation where, when it's something that so pervades the entire Justice Department, you can have someone who's independent, someone who's not employed by government, who becomes the counsel who takes that investigation over. And it's worth noting, Lawrence, I know you remarked on this a lot when it happened, universally, there were people in the Republican Party from Newt Gingrich on who lauded the appointment of Robert Mueller as special counsel to run this investigation. There wasn't even a whiff of claims that it was an illegal process at that point in time from anyone other than the self-interested president of the United States, who never wanted to see this investigation happen.
And John Harwood, the president, again, tweeted something that is inconceivable from any other presidency. The White House counsel has not left. His successor has not been named. And yet, this morning, the president said, "I am very excited about the person who will be taking the place of Don McGahn as White House counsel. I liked Don, but he was not responsible for me not firing Bob Mueller or Jeff Sessions. So much fake reporting and fake news." Two big things to go into there. One is he's very excited about someone who he has not named, and we have every reason to believe he has not found. That there actually at this point is no one to take that job is as likely as not. But then this pushing the idea that he did not stop me from firing Bob Mueller or Jeff Sessions. The president is not disputing that he thought about it or tried to, and maybe he wants to claim that he stopped himself.
Well, that's what's so disturbing about these notes, Lawrence. It is he is playing out some sort of dialogue within his own head. That it doesn't make any sense to sit there and say I'm excited about someone that I haven't selected yet. He had other tweets today where he was saying, "Oh yeah, and I can't emphasize enough how fake the news is," and he talked about fake books and all. These are all transparent attempts by the president to deny the reality that's closing in on him. And so, you know, when he talks about the great legal minds say that we shouldn't have had a special counsel or it's illegal, that's not connected with consulting any legal minds. That is a primal impulse on his part of self-protection now that he sees that the special counsel is put him in danger. He's not hard to read. When he talks about, oh, Jeff Sessions, what kind of a man is he? He shouldn't have recused himself. He is frightened because he didn't have an attorney general who would turn off the switch on this investigation. And that's what he is complaining against. And it's reality, and it's getting closer to him.
There's a lot of speculation that he had a very specific target in mind on a tweet this morning attacking, as he calls it, the enemy of the people, the so-called fake news. And he specified this time this includes fake books, which come out about me all the time, always anonymous sources, are pure fiction, enemy of the people. So, David Frum, he's talking about you there, who've written Trumpocracy.
You know,
but
I cannot get him to use my name in a tweet. It would just make such a difference.
I miss it myself. He used to attack me all the time, and he hasn't done it in a long time, and I miss it. But there's a lot of speculation that he's very worried about the Bob Woodward book that's scheduled for publication on September 11th that is an inside the Trump White House book. And he seems to be possibly ramping up for some kind of defense of that.
Right, that seems so right. I like John Harwood's description of this as like a dialogue with himself. It's like Gollum in Lord of the Rings, constantly reassuring himself and stroking the precious and reminding himself that everything is going to be okay. But I think the new tone that is different is he is thinking about this not just as a legal problem now, but as a political problem. And that may be the reason that there's difficulty recruiting a new White House counsel. The new White House counsel is going to have to testify, probably, in front of very hostile committees of at least one House of Congress. And that is going to be an awkward, inconvenient, and maybe career-damaging event. That if you're trying to recruit somebody who has things to lose, which is what reputation to lose, clients to lose, which is the kind of person who's become a counsel in the past, that person may be very reticent.
David,
has he figured out whether Joyce Vance is available?
Well, Joyce is...
I'm going to bow out for that one.
Okay. But we're going to need you here, Joyce. David Frum, John Harwood, Joyce Vance, thanks for starting off our discussion tonight.